Welcome to the Mommy Manual, the podcast designed to help you navigate motherhood because no manual's ever been written. I'm Jenna, I'm a mom, and I'm your host. Right now, things are a bit unnerving out there. Many of us are stuck inside, some of us have unfortunately lost our jobs, and many of us are trying to navigate how to provide lessons to our little ones at this time of school closures. So today, we wanted to take a minute to chat about the coronavirus. It's affecting most of us, if not all of us. Before we get into today's podcast, I wanted to say that if you're going through a roller coaster of emotions at this time, you're not alone. I know personally I've gone through panic for my family that is in essential services, happiness that myself and my husband and our daughter are currently staying safe, and gratitude that my husband and I are currently able to work from home. It's an uncertain time, and my heart goes out to anyone who's been impacted by the coronavirus. So, let's start with the obvious. How best to protect yourself during this pandemic? First, always listen to the doctors and professionals on what are the right protocols, as many areas are under different degrees of lockdown or isolation right now. We've all heard it, but I'm going to say it again. Make sure you wash your hands for 20 seconds and don't forget your thumbs, fingernails, and between your fingers. The palms and back of your hands are just not good enough right now. If you don't have soap and water, use hand sanitizer. It's really good to have that in your pocket and ready to go in case you have to run out for something essential. We don't personally have masks in my house since in my area they're desperately encouraging people to refrain from wearing masks to help the healthcare workers who are running low. But we did buy a pack of nitrile gloves off Amazon like a long time ago, so we just happen to have that in our storage room. So if we go out in public right now, we do wear those gloves, and then we just sanitize our keys and cards if we touch them while wearing the gloves. And we remove our gloves before we get into the car, and then that way we don't touch, if anything got on our gloves, we don't touch anything inside of our car with those gloves. And we of course use hand sanitizer once we get in our car. My hands have never been so clean as they are right now. Don't forget to wash the doorknobs that go in and out of your house, as well as anything, doorknobs, light switches, and in your common rooms of your home. Just those are things that people tend to forget about when we're cleaning. Just try and remember to give your doorknobs and light switches a good scrub because that's where germs can sit. This one took a little bit for my husband and I to get used to, but try to make it routine that anytime you leave the house, you wash your hands immediately when you get inside. It sounds simple, but when you're coming inside and your little toddler runs up to you because they're excited to see you, or you had gotten the mail, put everything down, tell your toddler to wait, and go wash your hands first. Because I know I live in a condo, so not only am I touching the common doors and my doorway or our mailbox, like you never know who could have touched it or who might have been sick before you touched it. So just make it a habit that every time you come in, you just wash your hands. I also know that this sounds completely common sense, but this is a different time now. We're actually noticing that what we usually think is common sense is maybe not enough. Of course, if you do not have to go out, then please stay home. If you're not an essential worker, help those essential workers by staying home. If you want fresh air, please make sure that you get outside, but focus on social distancing and stay away from playgrounds as they're not sanitized regularly, if at all. The playgrounds in the city I live in have actually been closed down because they found during this isolation and social distancing, everyone was flocking to the playgrounds and the playgrounds were overrun with people, and that is the exact opposite of what they were hoping was going to happen. So they've now shut down the playgrounds and they've shut, I think, the parking lots for walking trails. You can still go for a walk, but they're just trying to stop mass amounts of people, so they've closed the parking lots. It's crazy. Okay, so we're stuck at home, and what do? Thankfully, we live in a time that caters to being home. We have FaceTime, Netflix, and streaming services, cell phones, and so many other ways to keep in contact with our friends and family while physically remaining at a distance that I am so thankful. And like I said before, there's beautiful parks you can walk through and walking trails. And as long as you're keeping that 6-foot rule and practicing common sense, you should be able to get some fresh air without putting yourself or others at risk. Of course, if you have tested positive for COVID, it might just make sense for you just to stay in your house instead of potentially spreading it to anybody else. Is it ideal being stuck at home? Oh, absolutely not. But we have to do what we can to help save lives and keep everybody safe. It's no longer about us as individuals, it's about us as a whole. So as much as I don't want to stay inside sometimes and I just want to go out and I want to go to the park or I want to go see my mom or my grandparents, it's not about me. I know I'm a pretty healthy person, but my grandmother is 84. And heaven forbid I had COVID and didn't know it, and then I gave it to my grandmother. It would be a tragic thing and I would feel horrible. And so sometimes it's just easier to just say, okay, it's not about me, it's about everyone else, and I'll just stay inside. Of course, daycares and schools have closed in a lot of districts, and so people are at home right now with their little ones, and it can be a bit of an adjustment, especially if you're also working from home with these little ones running around looking for things to do. I have put together a list of activities that might be fun to keep them busy while they're at home. First thing is scavenger hunts. Make a list of things your children have to find, and then they can go all around the house looking for it. It sounds super simple, but it can be a lot of fun for them. Or if you can, take it outside and look around in nature for things. I know some of my friends have been doing this with their little ones of various ages, and they've actually been having a really good time with it. So I would say scavenger hunts are a really good way of passing some time with your little ones and keeping them busy. Painting. There are so many options for painting. You can use non-toxic paint or finger paint and either let them use their hands all over paper or give them a paintbrush. You can also put paint in a Ziploc bag and tape it to a window. This is a fan favorite in my house. It acts like a light table, and as they move around the paint in the Ziploc bag, the light shines through the bag and it looks really cool and it's really pretty. So I'll just take a couple Ziploc bags, put a couple different colors in each, and then I'll just tape it to our window and my daughter will just go crazy. She loves it. Obstacle courses. I've actually seen a ton of videos online. This is not one that I would have thought of previously because I think my daughter's just a little bit too young. I've seen a lot of videos online of parents taking painter's tape or masking tape and taping out an obstacle course on the main floor of their house so their kids are jumping from like a cushion onto another cushion, and then they have to go underneath through a chair and then up. It's a great way to burn off some energy, and also just a great way to keep your kids moving and keep them active so they're not just sitting around bored. This one I call the big tub of fun. If you have snow still, then bring some inside and put it in a big container and let your kids play with spoons and toys in the snow. If you don't have snow, you can always make kinetic sand out of flour and baby oil. This will act just like real sand and they can play for hours and hours. I use a shallow, long Tupperware tub and I let my daughter go to town. Sometimes I have put in bath toys and water with just a little bit of no tears shampoo, so it gives it just a little bit of bubbles, and I let her play in our living room. I put a splat mat underneath it with a couple towels and she will play for hours in this. She loves it. She usually ends up sitting inside of it by the end and she's completely drenched, but she has so much fun and it allows me to be near her and also get things done as well. If you have little ones, here's a couple tips for fine motor skills play. Do you have any pipe cleaners laying around your house? Do you have a colander? Or maybe an old spice jar that has holes in the lids? This one was a favorite for my daughter and she would work on her motor skills at about 14 months old with this one for quite a long time. She would try and weave the pipe cleaners through the holes. It sounds super simple and I don't think a lot of us as adults would find great enjoyment in this, but it's actually really fun for them to be able to learn that this can fit through that hole, and then by the time they're done, this colander just looks like it's from outer space because there's all these pipe cleaners sticking out of it. I didn't have a colander that had the proper size for you to be able to stick pipe cleaners through it, so I just used an old spice jar that had like 6 holes in the top in the lid, and that worked just fine for my daughter. Okay, so the next one has to do with toilet paper rolls. There's no denying that many people have been talking about TP lately. Well, as you go through your rolls of toilet paper and paper towels, save them. I used painter's tape and a bunch of paper towel rolls, and I taped them to my wall in different angles. And then I gave my daughter pom-poms. I conveniently had some pom-poms, but I'm sure there's other things that you could use. And she would just send them down the tubes, and it was so much fun because she didn't know really where it was going to come out initially. As she got older, I would kind of put the tubes together and make like longer tubes down the wall, and she had so much fun with it. She loved it. And of course, there's TV. We totally as a family curl up on our couch right now and watch different Disney movies with our little girl. And it's not physically possible for my husband and I to both be working from home full time right now and constantly be making new and amazing activities every half an hour for our daughter. So we'll take a break. We all gather up on the couch, we have our little snacks, and we watch a movie. And we desperately all try to make it through the movie, but it usually just ends up being a big family nap. We wake up afterwards and my husband and I will go back to work, and our daughter will be playing with something right beside us, and it works out really well for us. And speaking of working from home right now, if you are working from home with your children at home, I feel you. I only have one toddler, but I can just imagine what it's like having numerous kids at home with you right now, and you have the stress of this pandemic as well as trying to get your work done and keeping your children from bickering and arguing and keeping them busy. So first thing, breathe. I know it's difficult to work from home full time and have kiddos running around. Second thing, make things easier on yourself. Meal prep and make meals ahead if you can. My husband and I took a Sunday when the virus broke to cook 2 lasagnas, 3 pot pies, 2 quiches, and 3 shepherd's pies. We put them all in the freezer. Those days when we're swamped with calls and a busy toddler, we just grab one out of the freezer and we don't have to add a big cook to our day. We tend to try and treat our days as much as if we were actually going to the office still. We get up, we have breakfast, we spend some quality time playing with our little one, and then we start working just as though we would if we were still back at the office. Our work is 100% more interrupted right now. And yes, my husband's conference calls sometimes get a bye-bye from our 23-month-old at the end of the call. Thankfully, his team is super sweet and loves her, so bless them for putting up with that. But trying to keep some sort of routine while you're at home helps a lot. When our daughter goes down for a nap, that's when we try to schedule our calls or do our recordings or filmings to maximize what we can do with the quiet, since it's hard to get an almost 2-year-old to understand why we need her to be a little bit quiet right now. Try to take breaks throughout the day to get up and walk around. Whether we do a social distant walk in the ravine by our house or we do some dancing with our daughter and her favorite songs, though I'm pretty over Baby Shark at this point, just make sure you get up and you move. Working from home can make it really easy to work in your pajamas, and I 100% do that often, or sweatpants if I'm feeling fancy. But make sure you open up the curtains, make the space seem warm and bright so that you can kind of get motivated to get yourself in the mindset and not just want to curl up on the couch all day. And some days that is very hard. Plan some activities. Like some of the ones I stated earlier, my daughter loves to color. It's a constant theme in these podcasts that keeps resurfacing. So while I work, she will happily color beside me, and it's a real lifesaver because as long as she has enough crayons or markers, she will sit beside me and color for like a good hour, and it lets me focus on my writing, but also the ability to engage with her and maybe grab a crayon and color alongside her every once in a while. See what activities your kids like that maybe they can do beside you, so that way you can still work, just like my daughter with coloring, but also engage with them while they're doing it. It is not easy to work from home with little ones running around, so be kind to yourself and be patient with yourself and your kids. And if you have to help them with online learning right now, my hat goes off to you. I am so thankful my daughter is not yet at that point. If you're not sure what activities might work well for your toddler, then head over to our YouTube channel, where we have made a couple videos highlighting cheap and easy activities for toddlers using common household supplies. I hope it helps. Finally, I just wanted to say, we know that things are really hard right now, There's a lot of uncertainty with what's going on and what's going to happen and let alone with what's currently happening. So remember that this is not a time to be hard on yourself. You can only do so much. Do your part to keep everyone around you safe. Stay home if you can. And if you're an essential service worker, thank you so much for taking care of everyone else. Keep yourself safe and healthy, and we'll all get through this. Thank you so much for taking the time to give us a listen. Please leave a comment on our Instagram or Facebook about any topics that you want us to cover. And also, we would love to hear what is keeping your little ones busy during the closures. So please share those ideas with us there. And finally, thanks again for checking out this episode. Until next time, stay safe, and you are listening to The Mommy Manual.